Yeah.
Not just a song for the podcast, but like an intro.
Yeah. Like I want lasers being shot out of an
It
eagle's
could be very
eyes.
80s-ish. Yeah.
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 Laser eagles. Which, if we ever start a band, that should be the name.
Laser Eagles. Wait, what?
Just Laser Eagle.
Just, like a singular eagle.
Yeah, Laser Eagle.
I kind of like that better than Laser Eagles.
And now, performing live at Madison Square Garden, Laser Eagle.
Nice. I like it.
It's good.
It's got a vibe.
And now it's on YouTube, so people can, nobody can take it from us because we're like, well, we came up with it first. Look at the timestamp.
Yeah, I get to play the guitar.
Excellent. Excellent choice.
I'm going to learn it first before Madison Square Garden.
It'll just come naturally. Don't worry.
Probably.
Yeah. Do you play piano?
No.
No. Then you'll be great at guitar.
Yeah. I don't have to get rid of, I don't have to break myself down and build myself back up.
Yeah.
I'm
just
building
building
up. Yeah.
It's just building.
Yeah.
I don't know what instrument I'd play.
If you could play any instrument? Or just for
for Laser Eagle.
Well, if I'm playing guitar, I think that naturally puts you at, of course, the wind chimes
It's good.
and vocals.
Well, no, because we're both co-lead singers. Co-lead vocals.
God, I can't wait to be Garfunkel.
Yeah. Garfunkel's a good name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we have a viewer. Welcome.
Yeah.
We're just talking about Mad Libs Podcast's new band. We're called Laser Eagle.
Laser Eagle. But the laser isn't in laser beams, but the eagle is.
Yeah, and laser is spelled with a Z.
Like the American Gladiator.
Yeah. It's so true. That's good. That's good. First show ever, Madison Square Garden.
Wouldn't that be trippy?
To play your first show at Madison Square Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could do it, though.
That's where we should have our first Mad Libs live event.
Madison Square
We're not going to do a live event until it's at the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
We refuse.
Where's Madison Square Garden, New York?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in our contract, it says we have to have the best New York slice.
Yeah.
From
Sparrow.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
I missed the... No, you did not miss the Kyle Rittenhouse discussion. We're just getting warmed up here. We just had some pizza.
Some Orange Crush.
Some Orange Crush. And, yeah. Brian's got notes.
Yeah, I got notes. I'm good.
Yeah.
Ready to rock.
I came prepared, too. With friendship. All right.
We ready to get rocking?
I'm always not ready to get rocking. Let's do this.
Super
K-Pill.
Who's Super K-Pill?
I don't know. I'm glad they're here, though.
Yeah, I'm always glad that we have a viewer.
Okay. Let's do this, Bri. We should probably post one of those.
Oh, Aftermath?
Oh. Super K-Pill was ecstatic about the verdict.
Oh, nice. Interesting. I would disagree that I'm ecstatic about the verdict, but I definitely understand how some people are.
Yeah. I think that it was the correct verdict. I think I'm not ecstatic about the entire situation. Terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah.
We'll explain
going
ourselves.
through it. Kev, my thoughts were, so my process that I was thinking of talking about was, first off, as a general, how do we feel about it?
Yeah.
One way or the other.
Okay.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Wisconsin state law that played a big part in this.
Okay.
was this trial even worth having?
Okay.
The judge. And then for me, I have, at the end, I wanted to wrap up with prosecutorial mistakes that I think led to the acquittal.
Okay.
I don't know where you're at with it.
That's fine. You usually take the lead, and then I just fill in the blanks. I'd be more than happy to take the lead, though. Now that we're both co-lead vocals.
Of Laser Eagle?
Laser Eagle.
Okay. Ooh.
No in the car?
Unless we want to have a side band.
A side band?
Called Diamond Crows.
Diamond Crows.
And then you can call. Yeah. That's for the Diamond Crows. I don't play guitar for the Diamond Crows.
No, for the Diamond Crows, you play the timpani.
Yeah, with my sack.
I forgot what I play in Diamond Crows. I think I'm lead percussionist.
No. I got percussion with the timpani. You're lead cello.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. All right, you want to hit the song, and we'll get rocking and rolling here.
You got it, boss.
Let's break out. Come on, let's break out. Break out. Tell everybody break out. We bout to, it's time. Let's go, let's ride, let's roll. Got me feeling so free now. It's exactly what I need. Yeah, we knocking down the door. Turn up a little more. Hey, what you waiting for? Break out. Oh, we on the map. I can take you now where the party at. We the ones that he just let into the back.
And we are live.
We're live.
It's happening.
Always.
And forever.
And on YouTube right now.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Still got it.
Yeah, it's a big one. We alluded to it on the last YouTube presentation, which if you listen to our podcast, you're like, wait, why isn't this a full episode? And we basically just teased to go watch our most recent YouTube.
Take that.
And we were talking a little bit about the Rittenhouse trial, how we felt about it, what we thought, because it was just announced the verdict that day on Friday night. So
yeah,
today we're covering it more at length.
Yeah. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts? What are your key takeaways?
Yeah, so let me phrase it this way. I think it's a lose-lose situation no matter what. And what I mean by that is it has become extremely politicized and polarizing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, 2 people were killed, 1 injured, and 1 17-year-old's freedom was on the line. So you really can't feel like this is a good situation no matter what. And I was saddened by the verdict in the sense that I feel that, in my opinion, he was guilty morally, but we'll talk a little bit more about does that ring true for legally. And then, I expected it to go this way. I think people in that particular situation generally get away with it. So I fully anticipated it. And then slowly but surely throughout the trials, like, this is not going well. I felt it didn't start off well prior to it. I know one of our listeners, Ryan, reached out to me and was like, so how do you feel about this going in? When we talked about the judge saying you couldn't call the victims. And so I thought that started off, in a weird way, and I'll get to the judge later. But all in all, I feel this was a lose-lose situation, and I think people lost. The message being sent is not going to be a positive one for behavior regarding protests. I think there's a couple of people that lost their lives, and their family or friends will not see justice for them. And a 17-year-old, did he learn his lesson? Hopefully he did, but we'll see. How do you feel?
Well, I think that the entire thing is very sad. I agree with the verdict.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I feel about the morality of it, because in my mind, I truly think that he went up there with good intent, but prepared poorly for it. I understand why he brought the weapon with him. I understand, the reasoning there, but I think anytime that you bring a weapon with you where you're going, it's probably not going to end well, because it's an option for you, and especially in that kind of a scenario. If you believe in concealed carry or open carry or anything like that, and you're going to a new place that you're unfamiliar with, and you want to, have a concealed weapon with you just in case, that's one thing. But when you openly go to an area where there is some protests happening, there is some rioting happening, or maybe rioting's not rioting. Yeah, we're gonna go with rioting.
Okay.
Happening. You know what I mean? I think that it's a recipe for disaster when you bring a weapon.
Yeah, and
I think this is more of like a lesson in proper gun training, and gun education,
mm-hmm.
than I think is made, or then it's should be more of a point than it has been made to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think if there's any politicization about this, it's about guns in America and how important it is to. I understand that it's a constitutional right, but it needs to be respected in a way that just isn't in America.
Yeah,
and I
think, get you.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're more of the gun rights not activist, but advocate than me. But in general, I would say like this definitely is a criticism on guns in America as well. With that said, I think this sends a bad message. This ruling sends a bad message with the idea of vigilantism. I'm not going to make a big point about the crossing state lines. I did a little Google mapping, and from Antioch, where Kyle Rittenhouse lives, to Kenosha, it's 31 minutes. Now, I know some people are really big on borders and all of that. So if you're one of those people hypercritical of borders and stuff like that, fine. I'm not. So I don't think a 31-minute travel really represents that big of a deal. With that said, he did go across state lines with a gun that wasn't his. It was illegally obtained, essentially. As a 17-year-old, he wasn't supposed to have that gun in Antioch or whatever. And I get his father lives in that area, whatever. What I will say is the idea of these laws are there to protect people, and some of the laws were misconstrued, I believe, by the judge. But also there's an idea of I can be a vigilante now, and if I'm going somewhere with a weapon, I'm essentially kind of provoking or agitating a situation further. If it's already agitated, I'm not the initial agitator, but I'm agitating it further. And then if something happens where I exercise that usage of the firearm, I can just claim self-defense. And I felt like some of the self-defense clauses, I guess, of the law didn't actually pertain to this situation. I was on the Wisconsin State Legislature website and researching what it actually says, and I'll bring that up. But I felt like they didn't actually really cover his self-defense strategy. However,
how so?
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay.
So the problem is the way this is framed is it was the burden of proof on the prosecution. The burden of proof on the prosecution to prove that there was no self-defense argument, which I think is flawed conceptually. And what I mean by that is this. You can prove something happened, but it is very difficult to prove the non-existence of something, right? So if you tell me that God exists and I go, well, I don't really agree. And your only argument is, well, then prove he doesn't exist. That's very difficult to do. It's generally scientific and logically speaking, the way it should go is I have to prove something does exist. So here it should have been the prosecution proved that homicide happened, and then it was the burden of proof for the defense to say it did happen, but it was in self-defense. Here's why it was self-defense. That wasn't the case.
Do you feel like they didn't do a good job showing the self-defense? Showing their case for it?
I don't think, well, they didn't have to. The burden of proof was on the prosecution to prove that it wasn't there.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's usually how it goes in a court case, though. You know what I mean? Like, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. So, I mean, I wouldn't say proving a negative is very hard.
Yeah,
says Super K Pill.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
And so that was my main frustration, and the problem is that is the law. So whether or not I disagree with the law, that's the rules of the game you're playing in, right? I can't say, in an NBA game, well, traveling should be 6 steps. Well, it's not. It's 3 steps or 2.5 or whatever it is. I can look to change those rules after the game, but we can't do ex post facto laws in America. Like, you can't go after the fact and change it and then say, no, we're holding you accountable for this. So I think that was a big issue for me. So in the end, I had a hard time believing that Kyle Rittenhouse didn't provoke the incident and then was claiming self-defense.
Here's where I see a point for him not being the main provocation.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people that he encountered that evening. Some people he helped, some people he was just, saw in passing. And the only, and it's terrible that he shot 3 people, and, you know what I mean? That's something that he's got to live with for the rest of his life, knowing that he's killed two other human beings and wounded another. Yeah. And that's a heavy burden to carry for sure. But there was a lot of people he didn't shoot. There was a lot of people that he had encounters with and didn't fire his weapon. Mm-hmm. He wasn't running around the streets willy-nilly, just aiming his gun at people. And I think that's an important point to note. It's also important to note that he had unpleasant encounters with other individuals, and there was, no issues there as far as, him firing his weapon at anybody or threatening anyone for that matter. So I think that that's a good point for that. Also, you have a lot of other people there that were armed as well. So, I mean, and I'm not saying that you aren't holding to them to the same standard, but you could say that they're just as provoking or provocative as he is.
Only one of the people.
No. I'm not talking about
gun.
No. I'm not talking about the 3 people that he shot. I'm talking about people in general at the in Kenosha during the protests. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not, I'm just...
No, I mean, the bottom line is the jury didn't feel that it was enough to, within the statutes and the laws, to convict. And I don't fault the jury. I do think the judge had some biases, but in general, there were moments that I thought he did the right thing. I don't think the defense was anything special. I think the prosecution botched a couple of things. Yeah. I will say the defense did one thing very well, and that was prepare Rittenhouse for the cross-examination. he was very, very good on the stand. Like
He was very polished.
incredible.
Well, and he was very polite, and that helps too. Politeness is very important, obviously, when you're dealing with a judge or with a jury, for sure.
Yeah, and that was, the prosecution made some missteps with that, and I'll get to that. I do want to kind of discuss the Wisconsin State Legislature, and you can find this on their actual Gov website on what self-defense is. And the definition of self-defense is, as stated on their website, a person is privileged to threaten or intentionally use force against another for the purpose of preventing or terminating what the person reasonably believes to be unlawful interference with his or her person by such other person. The actor may intentionally use only such force or threat thereof as the actor reasonably believes is necessary to prevent or terminate the interference. The actor may not intentionally use force which is intended or likely to cause death or bodily harm unless the actor reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself. Now, there's also another part where it talks about the subsection being at a place of business, and then it goes as such. If an actor intentionally used that force that was intended or likely to cause death or bodily harm, the court may not consider whether the actor had the opportunity to flee or retreat before he or she used that force, and shall presume that the actor reasonably believed that the force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or herself if the actor made such a claim under subsection 1 and either of the following applies. And it goes to talking about the actor's dwelling, motor vehicle, or place of business. But that place of business means that the actor owns or operates that place of business. You can't just use it as it's a place of business and I'm trying to defend it. So that was one of my first instincts was, this doesn't seem right. Why is he allowed to just defend random property? That's what he said he was going to do. And then he shifted his story to, I was going there to be a medic. Now, he wasn't randomly running around treating a bunch of people. He had a fanny pack on, but he also was strapped with an AR-15. You don't see many combat medics wearing an AR-15. They're usually running around treating people, triaging, right? So the other aspect was, hold on. The person against whom the force was used was in the actor's dwelling, motor vehicle, or place of business. After unlawfully and forcibly entering it, the actor was present in the dwelling, motor vehicle, or place of business, and the actor knew or reasonably believed that the person had unlawfully and forcibly entered the dwelling, motor vehicle, or place of business. So his main argument was that he was defending this property of some guy, right? And that he was defending it. You cannot claim self-defense defending someone else's property.
Well, what I'll say about that, and
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I'll say about that is, when he fired shots on those three people, he wasn't in the act of defending the business. Mm-hmm. He was trying to defend himself. So this is because I believe in. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but he was the first time. So he leaves, and there's like 3 different locations of this car dealership that he's trying to help protect. And not one of the occurrences of him shooting another individual were in the vicinity of those places, because he even talks in his testimony that he was trying to get back to the second car parking lot or whatever. So he's not saying that he killed the people in defense of the actual place.
Right,
is that where you're trying to go with this?
Well, no, I'm trying to understand how he can say I'm going to be a medic, but I'm also going to bring an AR-15 to defend myself.
Okay.
Against property that I'm not supposed to be defending.
I mean, combat medics have weapons.
But I'm saying he's defending property.
Okay.
But then he's shifting to I'm a combat medic.
Okay.
And then he's bringing an AR-15. But why did he feel like he needed to protect himself?
because he was going to a place and maybe had seen footage of everything that was going on up there, so he felt that it was a good idea to bring a weapon.
He did see that what was going on, and there's footage of him before, 15 days before or 12 days before, where he's in a car and he is saying, and this was not allowed in the court due to the judge saying that, but he said, it looks like one of them has a weapon. Rittenhouse says on the video, and he says, "Brah, I wish I had my fucking AR. I'd shoot rounds at them." So as he saw people exiting a CVS thinking that they were looting, he said he wanted to shoot them. But this was not admissible in the court. And the prosecution brought it up, which the judge got pissed about, which I understand because the judge did rule it wasn't admissible.
Correct.
So they shouldn't have brought it up.
That wasn't the only time the prosecution brought up something. We'll get to the prosecution.
Right. No, I know.
We're going to talk about
Yeah,
that.
I'm very critical of them too. But I'm saying he was going there with a certain level of intent.
Intent to?
I don't know. He had said on video that he would shoot looters if he just had his AR. So then he's there, and now he's a combat medic, or is he defending property? But at the end of the day, someone throws a little bag of nothing at him, and he's allowed to open fire.
Let's back up. Let's take a step back here. Okay.
Sure.
I knew that you were going to come into this scenario very harsh
Yeah.
on Kyle Rittenhouse. And I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve that. I don't know him as a human being. I don't
either.
So, but we react to different things dependent upon the situation that we are in.
Mm-hmm.
And at what, external forces there are as well. So it's important to note that, because you the way that you just kind of brazenly said somebody threw a bag of nothing at him. Well, it was in the middle of a lot of things. He was being chased. And so I think it deserves a little bit more than that.
But why?
And because it was a scenario that you and I don't know. You know what I mean?
He put himself in that scenario.
Absolutely, certainly.
So
Certainly.
that doesn't excuse his behavior.
I'm not saying it does.
No, you are.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so then why can't I say he had a bag thrown at him that had nothing in it, and now it's excusable where he can think it's self-defense? That's
But
not self-defense.
Well, to carry on my point. So when the bag gets thrown at him,
Yeah,
okay, is that Rosenbaum?
sure.
I think so. Bag gets thrown at him, and right after the bag is thrown, there are gunshots that are fired behind him. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't know where those gunshots are coming from. I don't know where that noise is coming from, Brian.
The leaves.
Oh, okay. Sounded like some dog was running by. So, you know what I mean? Something being thrown at him, plus, shots being fired. I think it's, again, I mean, if I were in that scenario, first of all, I wouldn't have brought a weapon with me if my main intent was to be a medic.
Exactly.
I think that, and to that point too, I think that he brought the gun with him because I don't think he really knew exactly what he wanted to do up there. I think maybe he thought he could go up there and help somehow.
Sure.
But I don't think he really ever decided what his true intent was there as far as, am I going to be a medic? Am I going to protect this place? Why am I here? And I think that he went up there with these kind of grandiose ideas of what he was going to do and be some sort of a hero, and he didn't think it through. It's, I mean, kids do it all the time. And I say kids because now he's 18. I guess you can say he's an adult. But
Yeah,
what fucking 18-year-old is really an adult?
I agree.
None of them. And so I'm going to say that I think that he went up there. He was foolish. He was childish, and he wanted to be a hero, and he didn't know exactly what he was going to be doing to accomplish that. But he bit off more than he could chew.
And I understand. And that's the problem is I'm sorry that he did that.
Me too.
But that doesn't mean he gets to use the self-defense claim. Why is he getting to use the self-defense claim? He put himself in a situation where he had a gun, so that's automatically provoking people. And I know some people, like even in the chat, are saying guns are a deterrent. Guns escalate.
They're both.
Tensions get higher the moment a gun is pulled.
Yeah, no.
Similarly, with the third man who got shot, the moment he had a gun, it was like, okay, Kyle Rittenhouse is defending himself. And I agree with that. If someone's pointing a gun and you have a gun, it makes sense to shoot. But Kyle Rittenhouse also had so it's one of those situations where it's like it only escalates. It rarely deters. People feel threatened. They're not always going to turn and run. It's a fight or flight situation then. And some people fight, some people flight. It is not always a deterrent for people to turn around and say, I'm not going to get involved. So he brought the gun there to defend property that wasn't his. Okay? So that's an issue that I have with the overarching self-defense strategy here. And then the prosecution.
Say that again really fast.
What?
Sorry, your last statement. Repeat that.
Well, I have an issue with the overarching self-defense strategy it was an effective strategy from the defense standpoint, but from just an outside perspective, I don't understand where the self-defense comes in. He brought a gun to a protest that was already agitated, right? If I shove my fist into a hornet's nest that's already agitated, I can't blame the hornet for stinging me. So he goes into this situation with a gun and then claims, oh, I had to defend myself. A, you shouldn't have been there. B, you shouldn't have brought a gun if all you cared about was helping people that were hurt.
Why do you think he shouldn't have been there?
With a gun.
Okay, because it sounded
well,
like
he shouldn't have been there. He's a 17-year-old kid that was on the other side of the situation. And I have a big issue, and I'm going to say this for both sides. You have a right, is your First Amendment right for freedom of speech. And if you want to counter-protest, that's fine. But what we're seeing right now, is specifically on the right side, is that they're bringing more and more guns to the situation, and that continues to escalate. If you look at any of these protests, the left initially starts with walking the streets. And it's not right or left is wrong. I'm not saying that. If you are on the right side, you vote Republican, there's nothing, that's your political ideology, so that's fine. I have no issue with that. But I have issue with the Proud Boys coming to all of these events, knowing that they are violent, trying to be violent. We've seen it time and time again at protests or at Capitol Hill. And I have issue with people bringing more and more guns. You're using your Second Amendment right to suppress everyone else's first. I have issue with that. And so bringing a gun, you should not be there. He has a gun that's not his. He is crossing state lines, which I said I don't think is the biggest deal. But in the eyes of the law, it should have been. Right? The law is very clear about boundary lines and everything like that. I think it's stupid, but that's the law. And everyone in this court case wanted to play it exactly to the letter of the law. So you're bringing that.
Shouldn't it be that way?
Sure. But then don't forgive things because you're like, that's not the spirit of the law. No. If you're going by the letter of the law, which the judge did with that whole barrel thing, he combined two laws together to basically throw out that lesser charge. You can't do that and then not hold up like the boundaries and the curfew, this, that, and the other thing. You don't get to play that game. It has to be on an even playing field, and at no point did this feel like it was on an even playing field. Now, I'm not saying that Kyle Rittenhouse, by the letter of the law, wasn't not guilty. I actually think he was. And I think the prosecution did a really shitty job. But I think there's an issue with the law, and I don't like that people are celebrating this as a moral victory one way or another. This shouldn't be celebrated. This is promoting violent vigilantism. It's promoting that. You all of a sudden get to deputize yourself, cross state borders, and go in force, and if something bad happens, you can claim self-defense. That is not a good message to be sending for all of America. It is going to further polarize us. If you want to protest against what I'm protesting, so be it. We saw it at the Rittenhouse trial. We saw both Free Kyle posters and, Jail Kyle type posters. There was no violence, but there weren't guns allowed. They weren't allowed to, run into each other. They weren't allowed to just do whatever they wanted. They were allowed to speak their voice. That's how it needs to be. It wasn't allowed to escalate past a point where it was no longer controlled. And that won't happen as we continue to escalate over and over and over again. I have no problem with people exercising their Second Amendment rights. But leave your fucking guns at home. You're not a police. You're not deputized. You don't get to make the decision of life or death in the streets. I don't believe it with gangs. I don't believe it at protests. People claiming to be patriots are the same as gangbangers claiming their territory. It's the same fucking thing, just different colors. That's it. And it shouldn't be allowed. That's one of my biggest issues with this, is this ruling. While it may be to the letter of the law, so be it, it is going to provide a very, very difficult precedent to get past.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. I just figured I'd let you finish.
No, go ahead.
Oh, it's too much to unpack all at once. And I didn't take detailed notes of what you were saying.
That's okay.
So, yeah, you can move on to your next point. Are you reading the legislator?
So, provocation affects the privilege of self-defense. And here's 2A. A person who engages in unlawful conduct or a type likely to provoke others to attack him or her, and thereby does provoke an attack, is not entitled to claim the privilege of self-defense against such attack, except when the attack which ensues is a type causing the person engaging in unlawful conduct to reasonably believe that he or she is in imminent danger of death or bodily harm. In such a case, the person engaging in the unlawful conduct is privileged to act in self-defense, but the person is not privileged to resort to use the use of force intended or likely to cause death to a person's assailant unless the person reasonably believes he or she has exhausted every other reasonable means to escape from or otherwise avoid death or great bodily harm at the hands of his or her assailant. So they are not allowed to use, if they are the provoking force, so if you're walking up to people with a gun and they haven't directly addressed you, that is essentially, both of you can be considered provoking, in my opinion. If someone walks up to me with a gun, my radar just went bonkers, right?
Okay. Do you feel provoked to attack them because they have a gun, though? Because that's the question that needs to be asked here. Do you think that, okay, I see a person with a gun.
I think they are the aggressor. If they are carrying a gun, they're the aggressor.
But what are they doing with that gun? What does their body language say? You can't just say anybody who has a gun is provoking. Otherwise, it's like, well, okay, it's fine to go attack the police because they have a gun on them.
Well, no,
that's not fair.
No. There's a difference with who has authority.
Understood. Some people, some police officers dress in plain clothes.
Right.
Detectives are in plain clothes. I understand that.
Okay.
He has every right. Okay, in the state of Illinois or in the state of Wisconsin. There's open carry laws. You can carry a gun out and about with you. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. They have the same thing in Texas. You know what I mean? You can have an AR-15 strapped to your back as you're walking down the streets in Texas, and it's okay.
It's fucking bonkers.
It is. You know what I mean? Is it bonkers? Yes. It used to happen all the time. Mm-hmm. Wild Wild West, everybody had a gun. Everybody and their mom was packing. Okay? Mm-hmm. So...
And then we had
what I don't see...
states become states with laws. The Wild Wild
West
and
I understand that. Listen, I don't think that... I think that there's a common thread that is used against people who own guns. And we've had a gun conversation before, and it's a very important conversation to have. And I think I think you were pleasantly surprised with what I had to say about gun ownership.
Oh yeah,
and what needs to happen in order to make the world safer and still have guns. I'm big time supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a big time supporter of concealed carry. Personally, I don't care if you open carry. Is it sending the right message? Well, that's what you need to learn. Something you need to think about as an adult and as a part of society. Okay, do I really want to be going out with a rifle strapped to my back? Do I really want to have a shotgun slung over my shoulder? Probably not, because I don't think it sends the right message. But that's not to say that anybody just carrying a gun, the gun shouldn't be the main focus. It should be what they are doing, how they are acting. You know what I mean? I don't think in any case, now I'm doing the same thing you do, Brian. I'm hitting the fucking table.
That's fine. It's not loud. I'm not picking it up.
Oh, I know. But you can sometimes hear like the microphone wobble. I don't want that. And so it's important to note their demeanor. Okay. Was he, if I just see, in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, until he felt threatened, all the footage that I've seen anyways, I could be wrong. There could be something I'm missing. You know what I mean? I like I said in our previous YouTube clip, I've watched a lot of footage and I've watched, a lot of the case. Nothing that I saw showed me that he was the aggressor first. Mm-hmm. In the three scenarios and there is footage of everything. I feel like this is why they have age restrictions on gun ownership. I think he felt threatened. I feel like he did think his life was in danger.
Right.
And I think that perhaps the people around him were provoked by him being there with a gun. I understand. That doesn't mean you should attack him. A lot of the things that he was kind of attacked for was honestly kind of good things, putting out fires, stuff like that. And listen, this sounds like I'm like a big Kyle Rittenhouse guy.
No, you're trying to be as unbiased as possible.
I think that he made a very silly decision. I think he shouldn't have gone up there with a gun. I don't care that he was there. I'm sure there was a ton of 17-year-olds that were there. It seemed like a very young crowd. I just don't think that the gun is all that provoking. And maybe it's because, of my thoughts on guns.
So here's two things on that.
Yeah.
Number one, do guns ever de-escalate situations, or do you feel like people usually get more tense around guns?
I think that people get tense around guns, but I think that guns can be used to de-escalate a situation, and maybe it's just a scenario that I don't know.
The gun never does. Usually it's
the person behind the gun.
Right.
But the gun doesn't even,
the gun will only raise people's tension, right? At no point do people go, there's a gun here, I feel better. I mean,
I can think of a scenario right off the top of my head.
You at home.
Zombies. Thank God
Fair.
There's a gun right there.
Fair. Although I still would prefer
Werewolf.
a bat.
Werewolf.
No, unless there's a silver bullet.
Oh, thank God there's
in
my
the
gun with my silver bullet.
Yeah.
Look at me de-escalate the situation, Brian.
But if there's no silver bullet in the gun, what's
you better
the point?
make one.
What's the point?
You still have a better chance with the gun.
So here's my thing. Okay, so here's the issue with the prosecution having to prove that self-defense wasn't there.
I'd like to, and I apologize for this, Brian. I would like to address one of our viewers right now. He says, "Can we admit that the Black Lives Matter made a bad decision by being there?" We cannot agree on that. They were there protesting something. They had every right to protest it. I can say that we could probably both agree that some of the decisions that they made, whether it was Black Lives Matter or if it was a different group or whatever, whoever was doing the looting, whoever was lighting things on fire, they were making bad decisions.
That's always a bad decision.
That I would agree with, but I can't say that I would agree that Black Lives Matter made a bad decision by being there. They were protesting something, and that's their First Amendment right.
Right.
Sorry, I wanted to address that.
No, and I agree. Like, if other people are there to counter protest, absolutely. All in favor of it. We've seen that from both sides, right? You saw in Charlottesville where they were doing essentially a KKK rally, but it was essentially white supremacy in Charlottesville. And you had the counter protesting, and of course, stuff happens. It wasn't gunfire because there weren't a lot of guns present. It was someone driving into a crowd of people. But
very fine people on both sides.
Oh God.
That was me quoting Donald Trump. I was not actually saying that.
No.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
I have to be very clear ever since I was labeled as a Trump supporter when we started this podcast.
So with Kyle Rittenhouse showing up, let me take a step back. The problem with the prosecution having to prove that there was no self-defense involved is kind of not fair.
They had to prove that it wasn't self-defense, not that there wasn't self-defense involved.
They had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt
Correct.
that there was no self-defense.
Correct.
That's in my mind is an unfortunate piece of the law, and it's specific to certain states like Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case. What all they should have to prove is that Kyle Rittenhouse committed homicide, and then it should be on the defense to say it was self-defense, and here's why you should exonerate him of the charges. It shouldn't be the prosecution has to prove the homicide and there was no self-defense. That is a defense strategy, not a prosecutorial strategy.
They did it that way, and it's done that way in several states actually. And the reason that they do that is to, it's supposed to level the playing field as far as like people who really are protecting themselves. It's less of a burden on them, and it's more a burden because it's just like the science. It's just like science, okay? I don't have to prove myself right all the time. You have to prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like it goes back to what you were saying earlier.
Right. So, but that's what I'm saying.
So that's why they do it. I don't know if that's the best way of doing things. I think that here's the thing: if it is self-defense, it's going to be easy to prove that it's self-defense. If it isn't self-defense, then it's going to be very easy to prove that it wasn't self-defense.
No, it's very difficult to prove the absence of something.
But in this case here, it's very easy. You have all of this footage. You know what I mean? Or it's easy for the defense. It's not easy for the prosecution.
That's what I'm saying. The prosecution shouldn't have to prove the defense's strategy.
I understand that. But do you think if the roles were reversed, do you think the defense wouldn't have been able to prove that there was self-defense?
I don't know if there's enough to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Like the jury could have said, "Well, I don't really know for sure." Well, then all you're going off of is did they prove the homicide, yes or no?
Okay.
That's all you have to prove. That's all the prosecution should have had to prove.
Okay.
And I'll say,
fair.
like, the prosecution jumbled up a lot of this, like, all of these different charges. It was like they were throwing shit at a wall and hoping.
I don't know.
Stick.
I don't know how he got his job as a prosecutor. To be honest with you, I think he is a terrible prosecutor, and I think that if I were a defense attorney, anytime a client wanted to hire me, and I knew that he was the prosecuting attorney, I would jump all over it, and I would say, "This is going to be a very easy case to win. Don't worry. Even if you did it, I'm going to get you off for sure."
Yeah.
I wouldn't be that kind of an attorney, though. If somebody did it, I'd have a hard time representing them. But
I feel everyone deserves a fair trial.
No, certainly. Certainly. I understand that. You're absolutely right. And you know what? Super Cape Hill, that's something we could agree on. Everyone deserves a fair trial.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that there was a lot of things they messed up. I think that he was. Are we moving on to the? Can we talk about this, or do you want to talk about the judge first? Because your thing says judge here first.
No, we can talk about whatever you want. You want to go to prosecution?
I don't care. I'll talk about the judge. You want to talk about the judge?
No, you said.
Okay, we started talking about the prosecution. Let's start talking about the prosecution. Binger was going for a mistrial.
Yeah, they both were.
Yeah,
both
sides were going for a mistrial.
Both sides were going for a mistrial.
Right.
In the chat, they're talking about. We actually have a wonderful contributor in the chat right now, and they just brought up the idea of both sides, which is odd. Both sides were really trying for a mistrial, although some people were saying that the prosecution was deliberately trying to throw the case. I don't necessarily. I disagree with that.
I think that they were going for a mistrial because then they could have come back with different charges.
Different charges in the different judge.
Okay, so speaking of the prosecution, first mistake.
Too many charges.
Too many charges, the wrong charges in some cases.
Yes. It should have been a straight up homicide charge.
Yeah. What it would be it would be second degree.
Yeah. Without
second
like conspiracy
degree, or like
whatever.
Yeah, like manslaughter.
Because I don't know, and
Which
I know
should be
that
called
video
people slaughter.
That
it's very sexist to call it manslaughter.
Yeah.
That's to say that only men could do it.
Well, no, it's we use the blanket term man for all of mankind.
Humankind, I say.
Sure, I agree. But
Look at me. I'm so progressive. I'm so cool. I can feel myself chilling down right now into a little snowflake.
yeah, it's just because the sun's gone and the garage door is open.
Oh, yeah,
That's
it's
why you're
dark outside
chilling
now.
out. I agree. Too many charges, and they should have really just pushed for homicide. But I think it kind of felt that they didn't have a clear direction with their prosecutorial lane. Like they were just like, well, if we try here or in here and here and here, if we have 4 elements here, we only have to really just nail one. But if we just kind of shotgun it and hope that the spray hits somewhere, we'll be good. And that's not a good strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, the way that he spoke about things was very inappropriate as well. He went on his whole speech. I think it was during closing arguments, and it was Binger who was saying like he was making light of the fact that there were people starting fires and there were people looting and there were people that were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, and he made it seem like it was no big deal, when in reality he had charges against a lot of those people too.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Like you can't just be like, ooh, yeah. I think his almost, this is near a direct quote. Oh, I started a little fire in a dumpster. Whoop-de-doo. Like, come on, man. Like, no, that's not something to make. That's called arson. It's not grand arson because I think grand arson is above a certain dollar amount, and I don't think trash cans are worth much.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
But not the can, though. It's the trash inside the can that could be the treasure, Brian.
Fair.
I want you to be, you've been pretty accurate so far. A little judgy, but I don't want you to go off the rails here.
All right, I won't. And see, this is why I don't bring levity.
That's why I do.
All right. I agree. I think his closing arguments were way too long, and I think that actually alienated the jury.
You know what else alienated the jury is when he pointed a gun at them with his finger on the trigger.
Yeah. Loaded or not, guns escalate tension, always.
Yeah.
And so when you have a gun around people, the tension rises.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're trying to fucking prove, you probably shouldn't do it at a jury.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like you're literally proving how guns raise the tension. You don't want to actually bring a gun and raise the tension. It's going to alienate the jury.
I think, and that's another thing too, and I think that's silly that they even let the prosecutor or the defense even touch the gun.
Why?
Because I don't think that a gun should be something that's in a courtroom.
Oh, well, you have to.
It could be. It's evidence. I understand
which
that,
it is.
but it should be. Well, first of all, they should have like a trigger guard on it too. The little trigger lock
Yeah.
fits right in there. Brian, put a little key in there, opens it right up.
Well, and if we've learned anything from like the movie set of Rust, like bad shit happens unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And it's all about respecting the gun. And this is one of the reasons I'm such a poo-pooer on quote-unquote gun rights in America, is because people don't respect guns in general. Like, lots of people that I know that own guns, very respectful of the right to own it. But there are way too many people that don't. And that's a big issue. Even in that courtroom, like, what are we doing? And I agree. Between that, the length of the closing statements, he didn't need to go on for, what was it, like 2 hours or something?
It was long.
That's just going to piss people off. People have lives. They do not want to keep sitting here listening to the same shit over and over and not hear a summation. It was like he was regurgitating his entire court case, and that wasn't necessary. And then finally, why would you ever put a still shot of Roadhouse in your closing arguments? Saying, don't bring a gun to a knife fight. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I told you, I don't know how he got a job.
I was very frustrated with that. So I agree with you on the closing arguments. There were too many charges. I thought he mismanaged his witnesses.
Yeah, that became apparent very quickly.
Yeah, when we saw McGinnis, who was the gentleman that videoed, he was like the person that saw the events, and he was trying to talk about how the two men that were shot were just babbling idiots. They weren't actually being a threat to Kyle Rittenhouse, right? But then the defense was able to make it seem like he wasn't an authority in that situation. He didn't really know what he was doing.
Right.
And they were also able to, create a lot of, not insecurity, but a lot of question around the actual footage, which I don't know how the prosecution was able to let that slide with the judge being like, well, it's a magnifying glass, and the defense is like, well, it's actually an algorithm that makes you guess. The phone guesses what it's seeing. It doesn't actually see that. I would have been like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, have you ever used a camera?
Zero.
It has
algorithms.
nothing to do with algorithms and an iPhone. It's just like any other camera where you're zooming in and out.
Yeah, I also think that they should have talked into Gage Grosskreutz better too before. They should have had
100%.
I mean, listen, the defense didn't have to do anything. The prosecution really proved
Exactly.
the point there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like,
When you had your hands up, did he point his gun at you? No. When you pointed your gun at him, did he shoot you? Yes. Weird.
right.
You know, I mean, that was not, and they called him to the stand as well. It was the prosecution.
No,
and it wasn't the defense that did that.
Yeah.
I think that's a terrible. I would have left him out. He was a home run.
That was the turning point of the entire trial.
Yes.
100% agree.
Yeah.
And honestly, I still feel he should have been held accountable for the other shootings. But in this particular instance, there's no doubt a man holds a gun to you, whether you have a gun or not, like, you have to react. That's my whole argument against the other two men that got shot, was they were trying to protect themselves possibly. And you shouldn't have to prove, oh, he wasn't acting in self-defense. But with the third man who he didn't kill, that's a no doubt self-defense motion.
Yeah. I do want to just say, hey, Chris, welcome to the chat. Good to see you, brother. Literally, brother.
Hey, Chris.
But I just wanted. He asked us how important we believe Gage's testimony was. I think you probably caught that because I think you sent that before. But yeah,
it was
very important.
It was the pivotal moment. I felt like the prosecution was doing well enough, and then that moment shifted, and you can almost feel the panic on the prosecution side. You could feel it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, fuck. One of our key witnesses just turned on us.
I don't think the prosecution would know panic, though, or would panic in that situation. I think that he's so disconnected from what he should be doing as a prosecutor that I think he probably felt like he was winning it the whole time.
Could have. He could have. I would love to hear an interview. I heard the defense attorney's interview. And I thought it was actually very, very well done. He talked about how, like, AR-15s are not necessarily the best thing to bring to a protest and blah, blah, blah. But it didn't change how he felt about his client's, guilt or innocence. The other thing that I thought the prosecution did a very poor job of was examining Rittenhouse when he was on the stand. I think in most instances, the defense keeps their client from going on the stand. Usually, a defendant will plead the fifth because the burden of proof is on the prosecution. So why have them testify and slip up?
And I think that's because they believed in his innocence. They believed that he was not guilty.
Sure, that could be. I believe they knew how well he was going to do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter guilt or innocence. A lot of times, lawyers are just better at it than you. So you don't want to put your client in a position unless you're way behind. If you're already losing, then put your client on and hope that he does well. He or she. When you're ahead or even, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you can immediately lose. And that's often what's going to happen when you scale up a person who does this for a living and an 18-year-old boy. And lo and behold, the prosecution went in thinking they had it in the bag. They were chomping at the bit, and they were very underprepared. They were asking bullshit questions about video games and Call of Duty. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
That is one of the lamest line of questioning I have ever heard of. And I know that in 1996, when the Columbine shooting happened, that was a little bit different. People actually subscribed to his Marilyn Manson in violent video games and all that shit. I've played violent video games my whole life.
Me too.
And never once said, I really want to go to a protest with a gun and possibly shoot people. It has nothing to do with it, and I thought it was a terrible line of questioning.
And I've never gone around and jumped on mushrooms' heads.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
kicked
Or tried to
kicked
go
a
down
turtle
to-
so hard he goes into a shell and then kicked a shell
Yeah.
at something else.
Never done that either. Yeah. I've never been in a street fight either.
No.
Street Fighter.
No.
But I definitely wouldn't want to go up against Blanca. He's the
I
scariest.
was going to say, you don't want to take on a Brazilian beast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else about the prosecution?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Bringing up inadmissible evidence.
Yes.
I think personally,
That's
I
gonna be my next point.
feel like the video should have been admissible. However, it was not, and you have to play by the rules of the
Yeah.
game.
Agreed.
Between that and the invoking of the fifth.
And if he wasn't wasting his time so much trying to make those points that the judge said he couldn't bring up, he maybe could have come up with something else that was more efficient for his case.
Efficient and effective for sure. And you know, that was the second step. He had already gotten in trouble for bringing up Kyle Rittenhouse's
Silence.
invoking of his Fifth Amendment. And if you know me, you know that's the most important amendment to me, because that is what will keep you from going to jail. Whether you are guilty or innocent, there should be no innocent men behind bars. And if the one amendment that protects that is the fifth, that's the most important to me. And so his silence was compliant with his constitutional rights. And for a lawyer, prosecution or defense or whatever, it doesn't matter. For anyone who studies law to go against that pisses me off. So when the judge who excused the jury, I believe he excused the jury at that moment.
He did.
To then admonish him, as they said, or criticize him and basically yell at him.
Like a child.
Yeah. He fucking deserved it. And I'm glad, the judge did the right thing. I don't agree with a lot of the things the judge did. But in that instance, he excused the jury and basically said, what the fuck are you doing? And I absolutely agree with that position. Because you don't want to bring any bias to the jury for that misstep. But at the same time, no lawyer should be allowed to behave that way in the courtroom. You should not ever, ever, ever bring up someone utilizing their constitutional right as a way to say that they were in the wrong.
Okay.
Okay. And then, I said the long closing statements can alienate a jury. So, yeah, I think the prosecution lost this case more than the defense won it. Have you ever heard that in like sports? Like the team didn't go out and win it. The other team just lost the game. That's how I kind of felt about this trial.
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that. I feel like in this scenario it's right, but that's not to say that the defense lawyers couldn't have mounted a case if the prosecutor knew what he or she was doing.
Well, the defense mounted their case.
No, I understand.
I don't feel like they had a very
Well, they
compelling
didn't-
case.
Well,
They didn't have to do much.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm saying if the defense had to do more, I'm just not. I wasn't trying to make the point that they couldn't have done it. I'm just saying they didn't need to in this scenario.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that. And then
I
Judge
don't
Schroeder.
think we got to see the defense attorneys, best foot forward. I think that they could kind of be lazy and just let the prosecution lose it for themselves.
Yeah. Judge Schroeder was not personally a big fan of him.
I think he's getting old. I thought that he did an okay job on the case. And I say that, and this is the same thing I've said about Joe Biden. and I'm not trying to start an argument here, but I saw that the judge wasn't 100% with it. I think that he still did a phenomenal job. I wouldn't say maybe the same about Joe Biden. I think he's doing like a C minus.
I would do the other.
I would say C minus.
Joe
D plus.
Biden's doing a phenomenal judge. I thought the judge was shit, personally.
You think Joe Biden's doing a great job? Well, we can talk about this.
He passed the most robust infrastructure deal in the history of America.
And what else, Brian?
That's all you need to do.
That's it?
That's
what about like Medicare for all? What about like...
We're a year in. He's had 1 year. He's got 3 more.
Yeah.
And he's already passed the largest infrastructure deal in the history of America.
Well, he didn't pass it. Congress did.
It was his plan.
Yeah. Anyways, what I was saying is, I think that I know, I already can imagine a few of the things you're going to say about the judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're in my notes.
But I don't think that he, I don't think he was as awful as maybe you'll make him out to be. But we'll see. I'd like to know what you have to say.
Sure.
I think that he was fair. I think definitely in his head, he had already made up his mind on what he thought was right and what was wrong for the case. Whether or not that kind of was, whether or not that was transparent or whether or not that's real, I mean, that's for you to decide.
Yeah. So, Judge Schroeder, it all starts for me with 2 things. The first thing was you can't call them victims. But you can call them rioters or looters. So I don't understand why you can call them one thing, but not the others. Like,
I think you should be able to call them all 3.
Right. I agree. It's the defense's job to paint them out in a negative light, and the prosecution's job to paint them out as victims. Like, that's the whole point. Now, I know Schroeder has used this practice in the past where he doesn't want to bias, but if he would have said, you can't call them victims, okay. But then to actually explicitly say you can call them arsonists or looters if you have proof, well, you have proof or what you believe to be proof to call them victims. So why can't you use that versus
fairness?
The arsonists and
Fairness is what you're going for.
I understand, but you
no. I'm you personally.
Yeah,
fairness is what you were going for.
Yeah,
yes.
I think you should have been able to call them either way. Like if you had proof, like Gage or whomever was, carrying around a lighter with some lighter fluid, and well, you could call him an arsonist. He has the means and he has the motive. He probably might have. Who knows? But you had enough to say, there's a lot there. We're going to call him an arsonist. Similarly, you had people that were victims, and your whole case is painting out whether or not you feel that he is, and you're saying, I have the evidence to say that they're victims and he's in the wrong.
Well, I think it needs to come down to the definition of the word. You know what I mean? Even if that person was a rioter or a looter,
you can still be a victim.
You can still be a victim. If you're the one that got shot, you are technically the victim in that scenario.
Right.
I think that what he was going for is by calling them victims like they were innocent lives lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Agreed. And I understand what he was going for. I just think he shouldn't have influenced that in a way. The next thing, the gun barrel ruling. I thought he misinterpreted the law by combining 2 very ambiguous aspects of these laws and then put them together and said, well, you can't use that, so I'm throwing out that charge. The other issue was that motion was made months in advance. And the defense also motioned to dismiss it. And he didn't until the court case. And it was... Why wasn't it until the court case? And there's 2 reasons. A, he was on camera, and B, when you have the jury present and you're throwing it out, it's with prejudice and you can never attempt that again. Had he dismissed it earlier, the prosecution could have brought those charges back. It's not double jeopardy. But the moment the jury is sitting, it would now be considered double jeopardy. And so by dismissing it when the jury's there, they can't retry that. And I thought that was wrong because I thought his interpretation was wrong. And if it's so kind of fringe.
And you were talking about it because it was like the barrel length had to be 22 inches or
yeah,
or longer.
And then they were talking about how it's within the hunting parameters. And I was like, well, was he fucking hunting?
It still makes sense for that law.
No.
I think it's something like 22 to 26 inches.
Well, all I'm saying is you can't bring those two things together and say, well, he wasn't hunting, he was a medic, or protecting property. So you can't use that as like this little clause within a law and say, well, it does say here, well, he wasn't doing those things. So I thought it was a misinterpretation of that law. But that's not the part that bugs me. Dismiss it long before when the defense makes that motion, but you do it once the jury's sitting and you can make this big spectacle of it. And I thought that was wrong. I did like...
Where did you see that? Where did you read that he can't be tried for that again?
That's called double jeopardy.
I understand, but
no, that's the law. I mean, it's anywhere. I don't have my source
but
on me.
But what I'm saying is, my question is, so if he would have dismissed it earlier,
yes,
just because it wasn't in the courthouse.
Well, because it wasn't while the jury was sitting. It's technically on trial at that point. If you're dismissing a charge, you can still bring charges up. But once the jury's sitting, it's part of the trial, and you can't be tried for the same crime twice.
I understand that. No, I know. I understand.
So that's the
jeopardy.
problem.
Yeah.
So what if he would have dismissed it before the trial? You haven't been tried for the crime.
Okay.
So why didn't he do it months in advance?
Do you think he did that on purpose?
I think he did for him to, make a spectacle of it, honestly.
Okay.
Because in most instances, if a judge
maybe he could have been thinking about it. You know what I mean? Sometimes a while to think about something, and maybe your timing is unfortunate. I think this is your version of a conspiracy theory. Like, I dig my conspiracy theories.
That doesn't ring true. I think you're being way too forgiving.
Let me finish. This is your version of a conspiracy theory. Whereas, like, I like to believe in aliens and stuff like that. Like, it's almost like you feel like you can read the person's mind. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I see your point, and I think it's interesting that he waited until the day of the trial to
well, why didn't he dismiss any of the other things?
What do you mean?
So if he felt a certain way about them and wasn't going to let the jury decide, why didn't he dismiss anything else? Why did he decide, this I'm not going to let the jury decide? He let it get to where the jury was present and then said, nope, I'm not going to let the jury decide. It's my decision. If it was his decision, he should have made it months in advance.
Okay.
When the defense, that's not conspiracy.
I mean, it's a fair point to make.
Yeah.
I said, no, Brian, you don't believe in any conspiracies. I said, that's your version of a conspiracy.
JFK.
The grassy knoll?
It doesn't add up the way it's told. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't. I don't know what happened at the grassy knoll, but I will say this.
I do.
It doesn't add
JFK
up.
was shot. We're getting a whole lot of wind here, Brian.
Yeah. I didn't like that he didn't allow for the video evidence prior. So the whole shoplifters, I'd shoot him with my AR. I didn't like how, that's part of the prosecution. And there was no real, here's why I'm not allowing that. It was just like, it's not being allowed. And it's like, that's part of showing the motive or the mindset of the assailant, right? I thought the Asian food comment was dumb. I don't think it necessarily was the worst thing,
I didn't
but
even
it
hear
was
anything
dumb.
about that.
Yeah, when they were ordering Asian food, he made a comment about how he hopes it's not stuck in Long Beach ports, which means it's coming over from China. And it was such a bad, poor taste joke. I was just like, why?
How so?
Because
not that I disagree. I want to know your
because it's inappropriate. There's no need to make that joke, and B, it can be taken as some sort of not hate on China, but like,
or it could just be like everything's held up because of the ports joke. Like I wouldn't take any offense to that. I think that's okay. Ha ha ha.
Well,
that's
the
like,
Asian
that's
food,
like, that's
which
like
all the stuff that is held up in that port is mainly coming from China.
Okay.
And you're talking about the Asian food.
Okay. I mean, it's the same thing with like, oh man, I can never get a cab in New York or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's a cab joke, but most cab drivers are, what? I don't know. I'm sure there's
Minorities.
Yeah. Okay. And you know what I mean? I'm not like making fun of minorities by making a joke about not being able to get a cab.
Yeah,
I would disagree with
explicitly,
that.
if every cab had come from if the majority of cabs were coming from shipped over from Pakistan and the drivers were Pakistani and you had ordered Pakistani food and you're like, oh, probably stuck with all the cab drivers in New York, like
I think that's different.
Huh?
The way I see it, that's different. Because then you're calling out Pakistanis. You're just like, it's the same.
No. You just said the cabs. But if all the cabs were coming from Pakistan and the drivers were Pakistani and the food was Pakistani, but you're just saying the cabs. Well, there's a pretty easy inference there.
I don't think that inference. For the port one, that doesn't. I think that's being a little overly critical. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Personally, some people get offended all sorts of weird shit.
Well, and here's the
dude.
thing.
That wouldn't offend me.
No,
even if I were from China.
I'm not saying I'm horribly offended. Fuck this judge. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying it's just another proof that he didn't understand the gravity of the situation. It was a terrible joke. Some might find offensive. No need for it. Just do your fucking job.
I think. Well, okay. Okay, fair point. Yeah.
And with the ringtone, I get it. Like, it's Trump's rally tone, blah, blah, blah. Do I think he loves Donald Trump? Absolutely. But in the whole sense of it,
I would be surprised he was actually put in place by a Democratic governor.
that has nothing to do with it.
Well, sure it does.
No, it doesn't.
Sure it does.
People's opinions shift all the time. Are you still defining yourself as a libertarian?
No.
Okay, and that was within the last year.
I understand, but like
he was put in place 30 years ago.
I haven't made a switch politically. I have discovered more about myself.
Absolutely,
and I understand the system better now.
Sure.
Okay, but like I didn't go from being a libertarian to being like a hardcore Republican.
Right.
Okay,
but I'm saying
my ideas are all the same.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I said, similar to the Asian joke, I think we're getting mad about the wrong thing. Why is he having his phone? Like, could you imagine if the prosecutor had his ringtone on? How he would have gone after the prosecution? He didn't apologize or anything, whatever. Just clicked it and like, not my bad for interrupting a very, very important court case.
Yeah, I'm sure he was.
He didn't have his shit together. That's what it's saying. He's making stupid jokes. He's making a fool of himself with his stupid ringtone, and it just showed he didn't have his shit together. How can I feel good about a judge? Like, he's human. He's fallible. But when you have such high stakes on the line, you want to feel good about the referee at least. And I didn't feel good about the referee.
I felt okay about the referee. I feel like he's past his prime. I feel like he had a lot of trouble completing sentences or completing thoughts, I should say, but I don't think that I necessarily.
Who was the Democrat that appointed this guy?
I don't know.
Tony Earl.
Nailed it.
In 1983.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That's probably, that Democrat probably even liked Reagan. Idiot.
Brian.
So, yeah. I don't feel good about this. I'm sad that people are celebrating this at all.
I'm not celebrating, but I think
I would have felt bad about people celebrating if he went to jail. I feel that due to the politicization of this, people on both sides.
I think he's in prison now.
Who?
Kyle Rittenhouse. I think he's in a different type of prison now. He's got to go around being Kyle.
He was smiling. He's gotten offers to be a congressional intern. Gosar and Gates are trying to beat each other out to have him as a congressional intern. He has a documentary by Tucker Carlson that he probably made some money off of. He's not hurting.
I'm not saying he's hurting financially. I'm saying he's in a different prison now. Everywhere he goes, he's known. He's known as the guy that killed 3 people.
And some people celebrate him.
Okay, but that's not on him.
Well, I understand.
I'm
so
just
why
saying,
would
some people? I'm just saying.
it's not like OJ. It's not like OJ had to live with it and everyone's looking at him like, you fucking killed Nicole. You
Yeah.
did this. No, it's not like that. There's half the side saying, oh, you should be in jail. And half the side saying, we love you. You should be in Congress or you should be the next president, like Ann Coulter said. Like, he's not living in a prison.
Okay, cool. You're right.
Well, I mean, you tell me why you think he's living in a prison.
I was trying to, and then you told me that he wasn't. You said that 50% of the people are celebrating him. I don't think that's the case. I think more people dislike him than like him. I think what we have here is a 18-year-old kid who made a terrible mistake. He's got to live with it the rest of his life. I don't think he's trying to capitalize off of what happened. I don't think that, just because somebody offered him an intern job or a congressional intern job, that doesn't mean he's going to take it. I think that you're throwing too much at him. I think that he fucked up.
I agree.
Do I think he needed to go to jail? It doesn't matter what I fucking think because the jury made up their decision based on the facts that were given during the court case. You know what I mean? Like he I'm sure he has a large road of hardships ahead. You don't know what's going on in his head. He could be emotionally broken.
But why are you? But you're allowed to make the assumption that he's living in a prison with.
I said I think he is.
Right, and
I said I'm sure. That was my own thought.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm just saying that's what I think.
Okay,
I'm not saying he is.
Well, you said he is living in a prison.
I said I think he's living in a different type of prison.
Okay,
that's what I think.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll rephrase it for you to be crystal clear.
Okay.
There is a possibility that he could be living in a different type of prison now.
Yes, I agree with that.
There you go.
He could be feeling absolutely miserable, and I don't want that for him long term. I don't want.
But I
someone
think that gets
to feel
ignored
miserable.
so often. You know what I mean? And maybe I've missed some things in what you've said, but I think that it's very easy, and it should be focused on that he made a mistake. It should be focused on what he did and how it's wrong.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But there are other factors, and maybe this is just like the inner parent. This is my fucking mom speaking through me right now. This is what this is. You know what I mean? But like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for him. And if he smiled because he got acquitted, fucking good for him, man. He's not going to jail. He didn't smile right away. He fucking fainted, almost. That's what it looked like anyways. I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps saying he's acting. I think that's such bullshit. I think that people just they like for their own narratives to make sense. And
That's fair.
guilty of that at times too.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not trying to, not call out my own bullshit.
I think you're perfect.
I
You're perfect in my eyes.
I'm not, but thanks. I just think that, no matter what you think of the case, we need to look forward now, and all of us need to learn from this experience. Kyle Rittenhouse needs to learn from this experience. I don't think hopefully he won't be going to a protest anytime soon with an AR-15. Even though I think
do you think people will learn from this?
Honestly,
do you think people will learn?
Do I think people will learn from this? The smart ones will, the stupid ones won't, Brian. That's how everything is in this world. I think that people who pay attention, think logically, are introspective. You know what I mean? I think that those people will say, you know what I mean? This is a lesson for me. I think there's a lot of stupid people out there. Not any of our listeners, though. You guys are super smart for listening to us. Thanks for your support. Like, I would look at this and I'd be like, well, if I ever go to a protest, I'll at least conceal my firearm if I bring it. You know what I mean? Like, I won't be carrying it on my back. But, yeah, that's what I think. Because I know that you're probably going to say, no, people won't learn from this. I think that maybe what you're going for, correct me if I'm wrong.
You don't have to be so sensitive to me.
I always say correct me if I'm wrong, Brian.
Yeah,
unless I know I'm right.
Make your statement. You're good. I'm never going to be offended by anything you say. You are very
Donald Trump was the best president ever.
I mean, I'm not offended by that. I think that's the dumbest statement you've ever made on this podcast.
Good thing.
No, okay. What were you going to say though? What do you
I think
I
the
was
point
gonna
you were
say?
trying to make is because he wasn't convicted of any crimes, people will think that this is okay now.
Correct.
Yeah. Boom. Nailed
Absolutely
it.
agree.
Boom roasted, Brian.
And it's not that he was convicted. My problem is that people are celebrating this as if it's a victory for good. Like good human beings who overcame evil.
Yeah.
This isn't Brown v. Board of Education, right? This was similar to people celebrating the OJ victory. Like the guy got away with murder. He did a very bad thing. He got away with it. And then people celebrated OJ getting off because black men usually don't get away with it, let alone usually at that time, certainly went to jail innocently. So finally, someone actually didn't go to jail. So I understood that kind of celebration, but like, why would you celebrate a murderer getting away with it?
Yeah. I'm going to, like, even if you believe, because I'm looking at the comments right now, and one of our viewers is saying that it is a victory. Listen, I think no matter what would have happened, it's not a victory for anybody.
Exactly.
Two people lost their lives. Well, I mean, multiple people lost their lives, I think, that night, but
2 people and 1 got hurt.
Yeah.
Maimed. Yeah.
in this scenario, you know what I mean? People lost their businesses. People had tons of damage done to their property. This isn't a win. If he would have gone to prison, you know what I mean? A 17-year-old kid just lost his entire fucking life. He's going to be in prison for 60 years. That's not a win.
And it's not like,
You know what I mean? This is a very unfortunate scenario. In my mind,
Yes.
I think that he was defending himself, or he at least thought he was defending himself. We know that, and everyone can agree to at least one of those scenarios. Definitely the case. You know, people get hyper focused on weird things. You know what I mean? You see Fox News, you see everybody bringing up this, and it's a valid point. You know what I mean? Or no, it's not even a valid point. It should be noted. Rosenbaum raped children.
no,
It wasn't Rosenbaum?
neither of them raped children. There was a charge.
Sorry.
There was a charge.
Allegedly.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? That my point was going towards this. It doesn't matter. Even if he did do those things, he still was shot.
And killed.
Yes.
Right.
That was the point I was going to make.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So before you jump down my throat, Brian.
But it's important
It
to
is important.
understand.
I
that
thought he
they
had been
weren't
convicted
convicts.
because he had
No.
just gotten out of a mental health
No,
facility.
there's a whole bunch of shit being spewed that plays into a certain narrative on both sides.
Yeah. The OK thing where he's posing with an OK symbol. I didn't even know that's a fucking white supremacy symbol.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm fucking taking it back. That means OK.
I don't think you can take it back.
Sure you can. It just did.
I mean, you did, but like, I mean, it's not like the Proud Boys aren't going to be using it.
Yeah, I don't. How is that white supremacist to say okay?
I don't know. I'm sure it stands for something. I don't know. Asshole, right?
Oh, because they're assholes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're duly noted.
So
I think
and
that
here's
people-
the thing: when people say two, like we're seeing in our chat or whatever, 2 terrible people lost their lives, that's an allegation. We don't know for sure, and a lot of things are being said about something that isn't proven. There was no conviction yet. Whatever the case was. Okay. Similarly, people celebrating Rittenhouse saying he was innocent all along. Why wasn't he guilty out the gate, right? That's not how the system works. So you can't say that they're bad people without their day in court. Similarly, they shouldn't be called arsonists and looters and not victims, right? So I agree with you 100% on your final thought, Kevin. And I said it at the front of the hour. Was this was expected for me. I thought this was how it was going to go. I thought the gun charge would stick and he'd do a year or something. Or maybe one of the charges would stick and he'd get 5 to 10.
I thought that he would be acquitted from the very beginning.
Yeah, see, and obviously...
I'm not
I laid out
saying
my
it's
case.
right or it's wrong. I'm just
Right.
saying I think that
Right.
that's the case.
I'm saddened by this because I do think he was morally wrong, and that's the point of the laws. But within some aspects of this law, whether it's backwards or forwards or bullshit, it doesn't matter. That is the law. And I guess the prosecution just didn't do their job. And I do feel that the jury did do their job. There just wasn't enough there because the prosecution didn't frame it in a way. I felt like in this particular podcast, I covered provocation and self-defense more clearly than the prosecution. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm just biased.
Yeah.
But I felt like they didn't do a good enough job to paint that picture. It should have been far clearer exactly what it was and how Rittenhouse did it. But here nor there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I'm sorry. And I'm reading I'm trying to be attentive, even though I know we're recording a podcast right now. Everybody who's listening knows that we're trying to build our YouTube presence. And so I'm trying to be attentive to the YouTube chat as well right now. And this is something that's confusing to me because you get this saying, all the time. Brian and I have had this conversation about the Proud Boys. Someone in our chat is saying that the Proud Boys aren't white supremacists. Yeah, I don't know enough. I've heard both ways. I've seen both ways. I don't fucking know. And I don't care. Well, I do care. If they're bad guys, I don't like them.
I mean,
if they're good guys, I still don't know them very well. So, yeah. I think that's up for debate. One day when I've got more time in my life, I'll research it. I'll DuckDuckGo it.
yeah.
Taking it back from Google. Take that, Google. I DuckDuckGo everything. Except for my laptop right now because I just searched something.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
Sorry, this bothers me. I'm looking up the whole thing on Rosenbaum. I'm trying to see that if he was convicted of anything. Oh, God, this means absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah, you don't want to follow that rabbit hole.
But because I mean, I had heard. I don't remember what source it's from though, so that's a good point.
It's going to be hard because you're just going to find article after article on Rittenhouse. That was one thing I was trying to do is like do better research about certain aspects of the case, but you just get the whole case. And if I was trying to focus, like I got the whole gist of the case, I need to focus on one aspect, or like I want to understand this interpretation of the law, what explicitly was said. How did the defense frame it? How did the prosecution frame it? I guess I should have just looked up a transcript, but of the court case itself. But yeah, I do appreciate the people in the chat, and this is what it's all about. Obviously, I disagree with plenty of what they had to say. They probably disagree with what I have to say. Kevin and I agree on some things, disagree on other things. It's all about having the conversation. And as you roll up to, the holidays, it's important to have conversations. Maybe not something about the Rittenhouse trial, which is very, very polarizing, but continue to have tough conversations, have political conversations, have general news conversations, and understand where people are coming from. I really appreciate when people hop in and message me about things. I actively seek out some people that post things that I vehemently disagree with and engage with them in conversation. And sometimes they see my side, and at least they respect me for having the conversation. And I always do not talk about this at Thanksgiving. Yeah, this in particular I wouldn't.
Also, I am reading here. So Joseph Rosenbaum was charged by a grand jury with 11 counts of child molestation and inappropriate sexual activity with children, including anal rape, masturbation, oral sex. No need to go on about that. Jesus. Don't read things.
Oh, okay. So you were, charged by a grand jury, not convicted.
No, I'm just finishing.
Yeah.
No, I was finishing my statement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was convicted of...
bail jumping. That.
So he got a plea deal, and all they had was bail jumping.
Yeah.
So probably not the nicest guy. I would invite him to Thanksgiving personally.
I would say if you're getting charged with 11 counts, there may be some.
Rittenhouse was charged with 5 counts.
Only 3 counts of murder, though.
4.
4?
One was the gun.
He killed the gun?
Or no, there were 5 counts. And then the 6th was the gun that got thrown out. So not murder, because one of the counts was trying to harm the Gage guy.
I wonder why you can find him on the Wisconsin sex just because he was charged.
I don't know.
This is all very curious. This is how much research you have to do, kids. There's just layers on layers on layers on layers.
Yeah. I appreciate the conversation, though, Kev.
I appreciate it too, Brian.
You always approach
Suck.
the conversation the right way. I will say that always,
Thanks.
and that's what this podcast is about.
And you always approach it the right way too.
I
By
approach it the left way.
buttering me up with pizza beforehand. This'll slow him down, make him
Not
real
even.
lethargic.
You don't slow down a bit.
Oh no, I was a little tired.
No.
I thought he pled out. Yeah, he did plead out. Super K Pill. Super K Pill, whoever you are. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you staying, or woman. It could be a girl, Brian.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, now who's not inclusive? Me.
You. You guys have constructive
I
disagreements.
agree. That's why. That's literally how our friendship was created.
Yeah, our first major conversation we had was the night we met, drinking beers, talking politics.
Literally, we bartended a shift.
Yeah.
Kevin trained me, and all that I knew how to do created me into being a bartender. And afterwards, we went and had a drink.
Yeah. Super K Pill, how'd you find out about us? This is probably really boring for the people just listening to the podcast. Sorry, guys.
Well, thank you so much for making it. We'll talk with Super K-Pill after.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, make sure you try and tune in to YouTube. I know on Wednesdays it's usually a late night, but
Sundays we're usually doing it a little bit early. So
yeah, hop into the chat before and after the podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube, and then continue to listen on Spotify, Apple, and all of your streaming platforms.
All right, guys.
Thank
you so much for listening.
Do good. Be great.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Oh, Super K Pill, we're back. Came up in my feed. Sick.
That's awesome. We really appreciate you being here.
Way to go, algorithms.
No, it was honestly, and like I said, I know you obviously disagree with me more than Kevin, and you have your opinion. I really respect it, and I love that you jumped in the chat and were willing to engage with us. And I'm sorry that we couldn't go back and forth and really have a discussion with just you. But during the podcast, we do kind of refocus on the podcast. Yeah. But before and after, we will do the chats like this. And gosh, really, really appreciate you. Make sure you like and subscribe, and keep in touch. All right.
All right. I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what I said. All right. My work week just ended. I need a drink.
Yeah, your work week just ended. Mine's about to begin. But I will have to get going because my daughter and I are going to go see Ghostbusters.
All right, we're ending the stream.
No,
K Pill. We can end the stream.
Okay.
Yeah. The Super K Pill, thank you so much. That was awesome. Brian, thank you